Yeah, more to come on that a little bit later, but we start by previewing the big game on Sunday between Chelsea and Arsenal. We're going to be hearing from Mikel Arteta in a moment, but before that, Graham Potter on Aubameyang facing his former club.
For us to get the result we want takes everybody, not just one person. But I understand the headlines or the interest is around him because it's Arsenal and there's a narrative around that. That's fine. Nothing we can do about that. It's just to say, as a team, as a group, we have to play well ourselves. It was I would say, a unique situation the weekend, and now we have to learn from that and be ready for, like I said, a London derby. It's a special game. It's an exciting game. We have to be ready to play the football that can get us a result.
Losing football matches is part of it. It will happen at a certain stage. I don't know when, and you have to react to that and affect you just in the moment and move forward, analyze what happens, and try to become better as a team. And that's what we've done. We managed to win the last 2 games, and now we have to go to Stamford Bridge. They've been really consistent. The results that they had recently, and since Graham took over as well, you can see what he's trying to do, and I will be ready. Start to prepare the game from tonight.
Yes, a London derby to look forward to on Sunday. It's the early kick-off as well, Chelsea against Arsenal. This one should be a great game to watch, Jermaine. It's fascinating coming into it from a Chelsea perspective, I think, because Graham Potter lost his first game since joining the club last weekend, so he's looking to bounce back. They did that in the Champions League, but is this his toughest test so far?
I would say so. Look, in terms of where Chelsea started off when Thomas Tuchel first lost his job, Graham Potter started in, you have to say the Champions League, his first game in the Champions League, which was almost his baptism of fire, it was a tough test. But in terms of finding out exactly where Chelsea are in the Premier League because of what they've been able to achieve over the last, I don't know, 10, 12 years or whatnot, this will be a huge marker point to start them off. Interesting. In
terms of the teams, leaving the Champions League games aside, the ones in the Premier League that Graham Potter has faced as the Chelsea manager so far, there was that Manchester United match which they ended up conceding a late goal, so it ended as a draw. He hasn't really faced any of the other big teams so far, so how will he be looking at this?
Yeah, they've only won one of their last 12 games against teams in the established top 6. So what they need to do is make a statement in this match. The trouble is that Arsenal have won 3 of the last 4 against Chelsea. There used to be a period where Arsenal were getting smashed up by Chelsea on a regular basis. Those days are over. This is not as strong a Chelsea side as the one we used to see. What could be quite interesting, and you can probably give us some insight on this, but he wants to move from a 5 to a 4 at the back. He tried that in the midweek in the Dinamo Zagreb game, and obviously there was a lot more going forward because you had the extra attacker, but the goal that Zagreb scored, very easy. Ball across the box, headed back, and the striker has the freedom of the park to head in. So what does he do on Sunday? Does he have that extra man in attack and maybe give Arsenal something to worry about, or does he go defensive? You would imagine not at home. But what do you think he'll do?
Do you know what? I think it's a difficult game for Graham Potter. He can't afford to lose this game. So in terms of chasing the game and trying to play that toe-to-toe game against Arsenal, who are full of confident, young, enthusiastic, energetic players, I don't think that's the right option. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. However, on the other side of it, they've got some fantastic football players in terms of the overall qualities that they have, that they possess in front of goal, creating opportunities, scoring goals as well. We briefly spoke about Aubameyang. We heard the Graham Potter speak about Aubameyang. So this is one of the great things about not having to be a manager and having to worry about this on a day-to-day basis.
And being here.
Yeah. You can say what you want about what you think the manager should do, but you know, it doesn't really.
Well, I mean, I think he'll go with the 5. I'm not necessarily sure he should, because obviously with the 4 and with Sterling playing further forward, you saw he scored first goal in 12 matches in midweek. Aubameyang
he looked happier as well.
He looked much happier, much more, because in positions where he could hurt the opposition on Wednesday night. I'm not so sure that would be the case if they played with a 5, but also playing with that extra attacker there's more capacity for Aubameyang to get the kind of ammunition that he will need, and he will be a man with a grudge on Sunday. He carried them on his back for a long time. In his penultimate season, scored 68 goals for them and did a really good stint in Arsenal colours. And then not only was he kind of drift, but it was documented in the documentary as well. I would imagine that didn't sit well with him. He will be raring to go, even though Graham was in the VT we saw just there, trying to play it down. It will be a grudge match on Sunday.
Very Graham, though, isn't it, to play that down? What's it like?
Quite interesting.
Yeah, go on.
Quite interesting. Seeing what he does, because obviously Reece James, we know he's out. Ben Chilwell as well. Those are two incredible fullbacks, and they get up and down that wing, which affords the rest of the players a little bit more freedom to express themselves. Now both of them are out, it'll be interesting to see which route he takes.
It's likely that because of Ben Chilwell's injury that Cucurella will play on the left-hand side there, and then Sterling, as Darren's mentioned, will probably play in that left wing-back role again, which we've seen Graham Potter play with this season. It hasn't always been effective. There have been moments where it's worked, but not consistently across 90 minutes.
No, but you're talking about putting an offensive player, an attacking player, a forward player into a wing-back position. And speaking from my own perspective, I've played left midfield before, which is not a wing-back, but it's also taken me out of my comfort zone. And I've gone through the motions almost. I've done the job that I feel like I can do, but my natural first instinct, and Raheem Sterling will be exactly the same, would not be defensive-minded. It would be, right, as soon as we win the ball back, I need to be on the front foot to get forward as quickly as possible. So I'm not entirely sure how he won't be happy with playing that full-back position, especially with the World Cup around the corner. You
can tell us from a striker's perspective, Jermaine, what it's like facing an old club when you go back and play against them. Is there that extra bit where you just think, oh, I'd love to score against you today?
Absolutely. Anybody tells you anything different is lying. I'm telling you now. Especially if you leave on not so nice terms either. And we saw people that have seen the documentary about the Arsenal documentary. You've seen Aubameyang, you've seen Mikel Arteta, and it's not the nicest way to end your career, especially after everything that you've been able to achieve at the football club in terms of the goal, the influence that he's had there. He's going to be chomping at the bit to get on the score sheet and prove Mikel Arteta wrong.
Well, as for Arsenal, despite, they drew that game, didn't they, a couple of weeks ago, but they bounced back with that big victory against Nottingham Forest in the Premier League last time out. They may not be top of the table by the time this game comes around, but what a remarkable difference from this time last year. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we talk about the documentary, and that kind of gave us context in terms of the job that Arteta has done, because the club stuck by him through a difficult time, and the numbers on the left have been transformed into the numbers on the right. And I think it's the goals that have been scored, 30 of them, the goals that have been conceded, far fewer, 11, and the points differential. And I had to do a double take when I checked the context of those points.
You believe our stats team, Darren?
Not so much that. No, listen, they do a fantastic job digging me out of trouble week in, week out. I think more to the point is those 31 points, no team in Premier League history has ever finished outside the top two with 31 points at this stage of the competition.
Love that.
Newcastle were the ones who didn't win the league in 95-96 when they had a number of points that large. So in terms of what Arsenal are got to do, they've got a real chance, certainly, of fulfilling their initial objective, which is to be in the top four, but they must surely be in the dressing thinking, we've got a chance here.
Well, how important is it, Jermaine? Because effectively it's in Arsenal's hands heading into the World Cup break. How important is it for them that they stay at the top going into that break?
I would say first or second. I think that's a fantastic start to the season.
They don't want to be second, though, when they've been top the whole time.
I completely agree with you. But if they do end up getting a point against Chelsea and City do end up winning, they'll be behind on goal difference, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they'll see that as a negative. I think they'll see that as a huge positive. But we go back to that old saying, before the season started, by the World Cup, would they be happy being in first or second? I think absolutely they would have snapped your hand off.
Can I just say very quickly, with Aubameyang, I think in this game, I think what Arsenal will do will be look to deny him the ball. and see what he can do when he doesn't have the ball. Because the criticism of Aubameyang has been he's brilliant when he's on the ball and he's a great striker, but when he doesn't have the ball, he doesn't do enough. And I think they may look to vindicate Arteta's decision-making, whatever we might think, you know, because I think he's a wonderful striker, but Arteta might say, let's see what he's about if he doesn't have the ammunition to score goals. And I think Partey might be key in the match.
And Xhaka.
And Xhaka as well, just to hunt that ball down and see if Aubameyang then wants to go looking for the ammunition and make his own luck rather than waiting for the ball to come to him.
Yeah.
Do you know what people don't know is that you're seeing him on Thursday for a work thing, and you said at the beginning, you went, "Oh, I'm seeing you on Thursday." He went, "Am I?" Because for you, it's the highlight of the week.
Yeah, and he didn't remember. No, he was quite cool. He was quite funny about it.
But look, there's only so much he can say. He comes out. He's the senior player who comes out to speak and do all the round of media interviews on the Monday morning after a 4-1 defeat by Brighton. You know, and it's the former boss going back to his old side.
Yeah.
So there's only so much really he can say about it. But in terms of his position, he's played at centre forward, a little bit on the wing, which is where he wants to play, and at wing back. Is there any wonder that Chelsea fans aren't seeing the best of him yet?
Yeah, so it's one of the confusing things what Graham Potter's doing at the moment. I can't get my head around, because even when I've done the analysis on the game, the full-back area was just there for Brighton, just absolutely tore them to shreds out there, because you've got Pulisic and you got Raheem Sterling, who was supposedly made to try and come and help Chalobah and Cucurella, and it wasn't happening. I couldn't understand it, and there's no way he could be happy playing that role, especially when you look at what he's done at City and the team he is playing in, and everything was really concentrated on offence for him. It must be really strange and tough for him to go to a new club and have to play in a position like that. So I'm hoping they can sort that out soon for him.
Because you know that position. Like, what on earth is he having to do extra and think about? Because so long, so much of it will be automatic, won't it?
He's an expert as a wide player, and I think I played on the wing. You'd never want me to defend, because not in my nature. I'm an attacking-minded player. He's an attacking player. You want him to go forward. And you're right, if he's got Cucurella who's attacking-minded. And there's parts on the other weekend, I'm seeing Thiago Silva be dragged all over the shop. Thiago stays in the centre of the pitch and then orchestrates it. But I feel for Sterling, because you want to play to your superpowers. He's attacking, he's a winger, he's out and out, creating, getting goals. It's just anxiety of, you know, defending, doing things unnaturally, and then you're just annoyed. I would be annoyed, you know, trying to be out of my position. And you move from City, you say, I wasn't happy at City, I want to play. You come to Chelsea, change your manager, and then you've been pulled from pillar to post. How is he expected to thrive? He's not.
And you know, as he explained there is an element of a new manager comes in, doesn't have a pre-season, is trying to experiment. He played Pulisic and Sterling as wing-backs in the European games against Salzburg, which makes sense if he's trying to get to know what his players' strengths are. But to do that in the Premier League, when Raheem Sterling, by all accounts, has come to Chelsea to be the star. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't want to say it himself, understandably, but that's kind of what Chelsea wanted to do. They wanted to build the team around Raheem.
Yeah, it's the marquee signing of the summer, and I think I can understand there's no time for Graham Potter to work at training because they play every 3 days. I get that. But I think there's a limit to your own methods. You could work at Brighton and you can put Trossard as left wing back, or Gross at right wing back, or Solimarch at right. But this is Chelsea Football Club and this is Raheem Sterling, and I don't think it's very productive to play him, and even Pulisic to some extent.
Especially you've got Chilwell. You've got Chilwell on the bench.
Exactly. You've got Reece James, I understand, on the right side, although Aspilicueta maybe could. But on the left, Chilwell on the bench, and for Chilwell, it's the wrong message you're sending him, because he's watching Raheem Sterling struggling. For Raheem, it's even worse, I think, to play him there.
Yeah. They've got quite a tricky run of fixtures coming up, Chelsea, as well. And there's a sense that having started quite well under Graham Potter, certainly in terms of results, performances maybe were a little more patchy, but there was a sense that something was building under him, and now it feels like just one defeat and the wheels have come off. They've got Dinamo Zagreb in midweek. Then it's Arsenal, City and Newcastle to come before the end of the season. Those Arsenal-Newcastle games, the Premier League fixtures, of course.
But the thing with it is, Kels, it's the way that they played it. It was so disorganised. I know that they haven't lost, they've lost 1 in 10, did you say?
Just this one, yeah.
But you look at it, the way they played the other day, it seems like that's not good form. That's not good form. And when you look at the teams that's coming, I think every one of those teams, but if he doesn't make that more solid and get something going in there, whether it's Kovacic or Jorginho, because Jorginho was on the bench, I think, as well. And so Chelsea have got a way of playing up the pitch and with proper fullbacks. Then I think that's going to happen again. I think it might be papering over cracks, the games up to this point, because if he's that far off it with getting them two as wing-backs and then like you mentioned, Thiago Silva being pulled into play by Trossard, Chalobah being pulled into play, and then space, they can't carry on like that because they will get beaten. They'll get beaten quite heavily. Like, look what Brighton done to them, you know? So it's a worry. He's got to sort that out quickly because it's not going to be good for him.
No, and even you look back at the Manchester United game and you look at and Brentford, where they were so lucky towards the end. Was that under Tuchel, or was that? No, that was Potter. That was Potter. Yeah,
they could easily have lost that game too. So
I think they've had a couple.
Was a little bit on the wall.
Yeah, they've had a couple of results where it could have gone the other way, and that's what happens sometimes. And that's why you need the manager to come out and like we'll talk about it later. Like Ten Hag, he comes out and he tells you what's wrong. What he's seeing, what's wrong now, even when you win. And I think that's something that maybe he needs to do, Graham
You know
Potter.
what, right? A lot of people say about him, he changes it, doesn't he? He changes in the second half or changes. Why doesn't he get it right from the start?
These are the questions,
why do you not go, hold on a minute, Brighton, they're going to probably overload us for playing with these two fullbacks who are actually wingers. It's not going to work, and Thiago's going to be pulled out, and we've got it's not going to work. So I'm a bit like, why does he not nail it from the start?
It felt a little bit weird as well when you see Graham Potter's going back there. Yeah. The players are going to have an extra 25%. They're going to find it from somewhere. And the way they closed them down in the first half just gave them the impetus. And then with no wing-backs, no one coming back to help, I just couldn't understand why he done that.
And then he waited the 65th minute to change.
Yeah.
I think the keeper was changed at half-time because keeper was injured. And then 80th minute to bring on Broja and Ziyech. I'm like, after 25 minutes, we could see what was wrong, and yet he waited so long to change.
Maybe he's done too many changes and he's starting to think about that.
This is the thing. It's not just the changes in game that we're talking about here. It's the rotation from week to week, midweek to weekend. But you can maybe understand that if he comes in and having come from Brighton and now having to manage a squad that is expected to challenge on more than one front. It may be in his head, it's a way of keeping players fresh. But is there a level, when you look at performances and they aren't going well, you go, well, is there a level of consistency missing from that? Do the players want to be playing something a bit more consistent?
Yes, or you want to have a certain pattern. So if you're changing the players around, they still know what you're doing. Instead of, at the moment, with the changes happening, there's no fluidity. There's no, consistency of play. So no matter who the personnel is, they come in, you're still going to play the same kind of way, Kels. And I think that you have to get back to that, you know, so as then you can say, right, at least we've got the solid base of what we're doing because we've got quality players, and then we can build confidence in getting back to doing what we do. But at the moment, if they play like they played against Brighton, they're going to get beat heavily again.
Perception changes so quickly, though. If we were doing this last week, we'd have been saying they've had really good results under Graham Potter. He's getting so much right. But it could change again next week because they've got Arsenal. It's a huge game next weekend. You asked Raheem Sterling about it. Did Chelsea hold any major problems for Arsenal, do you think?
What, you mean next week in the game company? Well, yeah, because you have to respect the players they've got, and he's got the players.
You don't have to speak as a manager, it's okay.
No, I'm not speaking as a manager. I'm just trying to speak with my sensible head on what I would do if I'm Graham Potter now, because you have to stop that bleeding quickly, and you want to show the fans, especially at home, Kels, that, OK, I'm going to make it solid, I'm going to get us playing well so as we can put pressure on the Arsenal side that start very well, but maybe they fade. So you want to keep them at bay, and then you go from in the second half. So he's got the players to be able to do that, you know, in respects of Chilwell, maybe Aspilicueta, make it more solid, Jorginho, Kovacic, whoever he's going to play them out. But he's got the players. So why it's still a tough game for Arsenal is because if Chelsea change that, and then they're playing in a London derby at home, then Arsenal are going to be properly tested. But if they don't, and then Arsenal will beat them. They'll beat them.
Yeah, it's a real opportunity to kind of get the crowd grumbling, because there have been murmurs from that Chelsea crowd. They're not quite settled under this new era Chelsea under Graham Potter. Just if Arsenal go ahead, as you say, in that game, or even put Chelsea under serious pressure, it could start to feel quite nervy there.
Yeah, I mean, they're a crowd that's used to winning. And I think you're right, they've had that shift. But I think Wright, hits a nail on the head. He's got to have Chelsea always have strong foundations. They're always difficult to beat when they were in their strong period. For me, they look like they could be scoring, you know, they could have been 2-0 down after about 2 minutes the other day. They've got to get the base right. You've got to pick your best. If you're going to go with the 5, pick your best 5. Don't be too clever, too smart. This is Arsenal, top team in form. They're going to pull you around. Have your foundation strong. You've got a good bench, and pick it off then. But I think go back to basics. Defend right, defend properly, and then you can't do it against an Arsenal. They will pull you to pieces if you defend like that.
It's a bit of a puzzle as well, because Brighton were good defensively. They struggled to score, which is why they got more draws than maybe they should have done over the seasons under Graham Potter. And so this sort of defensive experimentation feels quite strange.
Yeah, it does. To be fair, there's no Koulibaly. I think that injury really hurt them. No Fofana from a longer time, and no Reece James either, which I think makes you have to tinker a little bit if you're Potter. However, Azpilicueta was on the bench, Chilwell was on the bench. You could easily have put Thiago Silva, Cucurella, Azpilicueta. There was enough defenders still before playing Pulisic and Sterling as the right and left.
You could
wing
play
backs.
one, but not
Yeah,
both.
yeah, exactly.
I think you could have one as an attacking wing back and then tuck round.
Yeah,
but 2
completely.
is
and a
straight.
hybrid back 4, back 3 if you want. Which again, I'm very surprised that Potter went with that formation and that system in that game against Brighton when he knew they would be under pressure. He knew they would press them high, and your wing backs as well help you massively in your build-up structure to beat the press.
Yes.
But not with Pulisic and Sterling. That's not what they do.
It's really interesting. We started off by hearing from Raheem Sterling, who's not been scoring goals for Chelsea, but has been played in a position where he's not necessarily going to get the opportunities to do that. Gabriel Jesus, similarly for Arsenal, not been scoring goals, but is he less of a concern maybe than Sterling is?
I think only because the rest of the guys are chipping in. I think that one of the things you want more as a striker is if you're not scoring, at least the rest of the team's scoring and you're still contributing something, which he's doing. You know what? You know, if I was playing that game, Kills, once it gets to 2-3-0, I'll kind of like abandon my coming out of the box and linking up play. I'm tell you honestly, I don't do that no more. I leave it out there for Dennis or whoever it is because I want to make sure I'm scoring. I want us to be scoring 3 and 4 and 5, and I'm not on the score sheet. When you look at Jesus and you look at the amount of work he's doing outside the box, he has got the energy to get in there. But then even on Saturday, he had 2 very good chances, which I think that a player of that calibre, he should have taken them because it was all in his hands, and he didn't. So that's a little bit of a worry because people are constantly talking about, well, he's not a natural finisher. Started the season on fire, and then we're seeing a couple of misses now. Now everybody's starting to say, well, we told you so. But talking about somebody who does contribute a lot, he will score goals. And, you know, as long as the team's scoring, you can't, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and if you're getting your shots on target, eventually something's going to go in. You can't kind of be on that cold streak, if you like, for that long, for Gabriel Jesus. But there's also, we need to factor in the fact that he started so brilliantly, he's going to be targeted by the opposition as well.
Yeah, the teams now work out what Arsenal are doing, what areas it goes into, but I'm not overly concerned because, you know, he's getting in the areas, and I think for me, I love how he presses, I love how he sets the tone, how he sets the intensity, and he goes into areas, then the Xhaka can get further forward, then other people can get further forward, and it's about the team, and I know every striker wants to be scoring goals, but he'll come good. It's just a little bit of a blip. It's a long season. You can't constantly be doing that. So I'm not concerned. I think he's class, and I think it's been an unbelievable signing.
Yeah, it's been no goals in the last 7 games, but that doesn't mean no impression on the matches.
No, you're right. 2 assists against Forest, for example. I found him quite tired against Southampton, for example. Even the PSV game before that. I didn't find him tired at all against Forest. Now, Forest were not very good, but I think as long as he participates, and yes, sometimes I would rather him not defend too much. There's a time in the first half where he recovered the ball in his own box and gave away a corner, by the way. But that's part of his game, and I think Arteta likes that, and he leads by example. So I'm with the guys.